I'll explain that one in a second. Then it's Hi Prince Phil. Hi Philly, how you doing? How's your mama? The Queen Mum of Xanda. Is she good? Does she still make you the latkes with the sauce and the soup? Okay, bye! First blooper. Hello there, heroes. I'm the Orange Ranger, and welcome to another Power Rangers Dino SuperCharge episode review. Unfortunately, I have to start this week's review off with a little bit of bad news. For the third consecutive season, the 8th episode of Power Rangers is the mid-season finale. We have double confirmation on this. First of all, members of the Power Force, and to clarify, I'm not a member of the Power Force, I just saw this from people who are, say that they received an email from Saban that said that this was the mid-season finale. And then second, the always informed Burgundy Ranger got Nickelodeon's most recent TV schedule, and in April, the reruns begin. Yay. Okay then, so did we get a deep, story-driven episode with a big cliffhanger hook that's going to keep us on the edge of our seats for the months that we're going to be impatiently waiting for Dino SuperCharge to finally return? Let's just take a look at the 8th episode of Dino SuperCharge, Riches and Rags. Ivan is receiving a shipment out back of the museum, thinking it's the training dummy that he's been waiting for. Not sure why he thinks a training dummy would be wearing a jacket. And if he ordered the training dummy, wouldn't he know what it looks like? Anyway, he dismisses all of those logical thoughts and starts practicing with it. Over with the villains, Fury has a plan to combine two monsters in the reanimator. He tosses in some of the gold coins from Gold Digger and the magic pendant from Spellbinder. Hey, the pendant that Sledge saved! It's great to see it again. Not so great that Sledge isn't the one that gets to use it, though. I do love that Heckle's sitting there chomping on popcorn in the background, though. The plan that Heckle calls perfect is to use the coins to get the Rangers obsessed with greed and attacking each other. Perfect? Oh, and by the way, he takes Singe's blaster and gives it to Fury. Fury says it's because Singe can't be trusted, but A, Heckle didn't say that, and B, why? Anyway, Kendall walks into the lab on the phone, looking for a package that the company says has already been delivered. Oh, and Ivan's training dummy has arrived. But I mean, of course it's arrived. Ivan's already using it, right? So yeah, you could see this coming a mile away, especially if you heard or read the episode description. But Ivan, it turns out, was not training with the dummy he ordered, but with a 1,000-year-old suit of honor that was being loaned to the museum. Kendall is distraught. This is a major problem. Ivan is a male rooster about the whole thing, not realizing what he's done. Heckle heads out and starts throwing gold coins around the street, and not a single person thinks that this is weird. They all just start diving and grabbing them up. Over at the cafe, a man is complaining about the cost of his meal because he's never eaten at a tourist trap before. Quick, somebody call Shelby's dad. The man pays his bill with 3 of the gold coins and says it's totally okay for him to do that because they are solid gold. Of course, every business in America can just accept solid gold coins as a payment currency. And by the way, his bill was only about $8, and he tosses down 3 of the half-dollar sized solid gold coins. He tells Chase that he doesn't get a tip, but yeah, he did. Tyler and Chase touch the coins and the greed spell takes hold. They leave to go find more, passing Kendall and Ivan, who are preparing for a bad meeting. This man, who is identified as Mr. Smith near the end of the episode, loaned the museum the suit. Learning that it's been destroyed, he says he wants its $2 million cost or he's taking the museum. There are just a few problems with this premise. Number 1, That is not how debt works. This is a private deal. He can sue the museum, he can try to force them into bankruptcy, but he can't just seize the property. Number 2. A museum that has multiple complete dinosaur fossils probably has a pretty massive budget and is also probably at least partially government funded. I don't imagine that $2 million would be that big of a deal. Number 3. A man as smart and business savvy as Mr. Smith seems to be surely would have taken out insurance on the suit before loaning it to the museum. And even if he didn't, the museum very likely insures all of its own pieces. Somebody get Flo on the phone. Number 4. If the cost of this piece being damaged or destroyed would bankrupt the museum, then they shouldn't have risked taking it on in the first place. There are a vast number of things that can happen to a display piece inside a museum. Number 5. If Mr. Smith was somehow able to seize the dinosaur museum, why not just leave it open and let it make him money? I mean, we see later in the episode that he seems to be planning to turn it into some kind of personal mansion, but why not just let it stay open, take ownership of it, and just keep making money from it? Number 6. This is a dinosaur museum. Tell me again why they're displaying a suit of honor from the 1000s? Number 7. No, kidding. Just kidding, that's it. Heckle, actually wearing those goggles for once, sees Chase and Tyler coming and decides to trick them into following Spelldigger, who he sends to get more coins from his vast treasure pile. Spelldigger leaves with the empty bags. We then see Chase and Tyler following a trail of coins. Once again, those bags were empty. He was supposed to be leading them to the treasure. Ivan, who'd been sent by Kendall to look for them, is intercepted by Fury, who'd himself been sent to get their Energems, but decides to fight Ivan instead. Ivan morphs, but it's an instamorph, because I'm not really sure if you guys have noticed this, but this show actually uses very few single Ranger morphing sequences. Chase and Tyler are stopped by Mini Rexy. Yes, apparently Rexy can somehow give itself the supercharger and go all chibi. It leads them over to Ivan and Fury, who decides it's time to use Singe's blaster sword. I was not under the impression that those were the same weapon. Tyler goes supercharge and Fury retreats. Demorphing, the two affected Rangers go right back to being greedy and gathering gold coins. Ivan thinks it's to help him pay his debt, even though the two of them weren't at the museum when he learned about it and thus wouldn't have known about it anyway. He gets all noble, declaring that he won't pay his debt with monster gold, but he suddenly remembers where he can get some money and he leaves. He heads to the bank, which is either the Amber Beach Bank or the Bank of Amber Beach, depending on whether you believe the teller or the sign. He asks the teller for a bar of gold, explaining that he's a Knight of Xandar, and that the Knights of Xandar were paid by the king with gold bars, his being placed in the bank. Alright, it's time to get a little educational on you heroes. Number 1. While there were seed lenders and even money changers as far back as ancient Greece and Rome, the idea of deposit-based banking as we know of it today started in Italy around the 1400s. Ivan lived during the 1200s, meaning it's very unlikely that his gold was placed into any sort of bank. Number 2. Even if there was some kind of bank at that time, Ivan is in a different country now. The idea of different countries, let's call them kingdoms for Ivan's sake, did exist during Ivan's time. You don't just go to another kingdom and say that your money is in the bank. When the teller asks Ivan for an ID or anything of his with a name on it, Ivan pulls out his sword. Of course, the teller doesn't stop to read his personality at all, panics, and hits the alarm. And of course, Ivan, now a suspected bank robber, just leaves. Back at the lab, the Rangers are tallying up exhibits that they can part with in order to pay Mr. Smith. I'm pretty sure a Triceratops horn would cost more than just $3,000, but what do I know? Tyler and Chase show back up with pockets full of monster gold, which Kendall concludes is probably enchanted in some way. Not being able to get to his gold, Ivan tries to pledge his service as a knight to protect Mr. Smith, but apparently his secretary is part cat and serves that role well enough. Over with the villains, Fury blames the Gold Ranger for not being able to get the Red and Black Rangers, but Wrench modifies that pendant to make it a magic portal that can suck the Rangers in. Kendall concludes that the coins activate the part of the brain that makes people greedy. Since not everyone is greedy, that part of the brain does not actually exist. I think it's a lot more like the Star Trek Next Generation episode The Game. The coins stimulate the pleasure center of the brain, making people want to get more of them. The coins are psychotropically addictive. Somebody get Data on the line. We need flashing hand beacons. I am a geek. Ivan slides down and asks what all the fossils are doing everywhere. Shelby explains they're looking for things to sell to pay the debt, and Kendall explains that it doesn't actually matter because they don't have enough anyway. It finally hits Ivan what he's done and what the situation is. But you know what? It's okay. I have some ideas. How about we have a fundraiser? Or how about we do like a pledge drive? Maybe we can look for some donors, see if there's anybody that wants a new tax break. It's tax season, right? Okay, or how about this? How about we contact Mr. Smith and see if he'll accept a payment plan, something the museum can work into its budget. Or they could pay him back with the monster gold that they know full well causes a chemical reaction in the brain of humans to make them even greedier. That's a fan-freaking-tastic idea, Shelby. But apparently they're going to need more gold than they have right now, so they need Tyler and Chase to lead them to the monster. Except that, okay. As of the writing of this episode, gold costs about $1,200 an ounce. Each of those coins looks to be about the size of, say, a $50, and $50 weigh about half an ounce. So, yeah, that man earlier in the cafe, he tossed down about $1,800 on the counter. I mean, thinking about it and looking at it, there might not be $2 million worth of gold on that table, but I mean, it's gotta be pretty close, right? Anyway, Tyler and Chase lead them to where the coins were, but the paths split off. Tyler and Chase both decide to go the same direction for some reason. Wouldn't greed tell you to split off so you can get all of one pile of the treasure? Shelby, acting as second in command, which I always think is cool, sends Ivan and Coda after Tyler and Chase, while she and Riley follow the other path. I do think it's cool that she's acting as second in command, though I don't quite understand why she sent 2 Rangers after 2 other Rangers when she could have just split the team in half evenly, but I guess I haven't read her book. Shelby and Riley's path leads to Spelldigger, with the other path leading to nothing, apparently, since it's not mentioned. The two morph and fight him, but his portal absorbs their blast. Riley calls the other Rangers, and they show up morphed, with Tyler in Supercharge already. He goes triangular formation and allows himself to get sucked in, landing a hammer punch at close range and breaking the portal. But if Tyler was able to land a hammer punch in close range at full size, it means he wasn't getting shrunken down to fit inside that portal. So wouldn't anything that Spelldigger sucked in just smack into him at full size? Anyway, Tyler uses a T-Rex Morpher Final Blast, which seems to be kind of badly edited, because he holds up the Tricera drill, and suddenly there's a blast. Spelldigger explodes, and coins rain from the sky, breaking the spell on the 2 Rangers. They decide this means it's safe for them to use the gold to pay back Mr. Smith. Even though earlier in the episode, Ivan said he wouldn't use Monster Gold, no mention of cursed or uncursed to do so. I was begging the episode not to go with this cheap of an ending. To my amazement, it listened. The coins vanish, and Spelldigger grows. However, this Zord fight is barely even worth mentioning. Ivan calls for the Plesiocharge Megazord Pack-a-Rex formation. Not only is Kendall back to not flying her own Zord, but none of these Zords are actually Ivan's. He also gets the Dino SuperDrive Saber because, say it with me kids, this is his focus episode. They punch Spelldigger twice, use the Galactic Blast, and that's it. Honestly, they could have cut the Zord fight from this episode, extended the ending a little bit, and I wouldn't have noticed. You do not need to show us the Zord fight just to show us the Zord fight. Back on the villain ship, Fury is worried about getting destroyed for failing when he hears Singe talking to someone mysterious on a tablet. This mysterious person is apparently off-world because he tells them that Heckle is on Earth looking for the Energems. Fury, being a total idiot, doesn't sit and listen, but instead confronts Singe, who makes up some quick story about his grandmama, even though he called the person Sir. Back at the cafe, it seems like time is up. Mr. Smith has come to collect, and Ivan's pleas for generosity fall on deaf ears. Man, Mr. Smith is a real shark, isn't he? Don't worry, I'll explain that one in a second. But then we get another, "Oh, hi, Prince Philip," moment. The police actually informed him that some whack job claiming to be a Knight of Xandar tried to rob a bank? It turns out that Ivan was being totally truthful about the whole getting paid with a bar of gold thing, and his has apparently been sitting in some kind of weird 800-year-old bank drawing interest the entire time. And man, that account has got to be worth a ludicrous amount of money now. I mean, we're talking about 800 years of compounding interest. It turns out that his account has increased by about 1.5 times, giving this episode a real Saturday morning cartoon ending. Ivan, of course, has just over $2 million. Philip gives it to him, and he gives it to Mr. Smith, who's baffled about why Ivan wouldn't just let the museum be closed and just be rich. But Ivan says the culture would be poorer. A confused Mr. Smith turns around and walks away. And I loved it. Some people are just hardcore capitalists. All they understand is money. The almighty dollar rules all. They don't understand things like culture and emotion and things like that. This episode had wrapped up perfectly at that point. The man got paid for the damage that Ivan legitimately caused. We know why our Gold Ranger is a better man than the greedy businessman. It was a perfect ending. A perfect episode ending? Not on Dino SuperCharge's watch. Mr. Smith literally and figuratively pulls a 180, refusing to take Ivan's money, leading us to a slapstick ending of the two shoving the check back and forth until Mr. Smith sicks his cat lady on Ivan to force him to take the check back. Did you guys realize that I had stopped saying let's dig up some super fossils? I was watching some of my past episodes and realized that I just kind of stopped doing that. So, let's do it. Wait, what's that? Oh, right, the shark joke. Okay, so while I didn't recognize him, Mr. Smith's voice throughout the episode kept ringing as really familiar. So I looked it up, and it turns out that it's Paul Gittins, who played Shark Master Finn on Jungle Fury. And his assistant, Eve Gordon, is also Keeper's suit actress. Okay, now let's dig up some super fossils. Episode 8, Riches and Rags. Pros, always nice to get an Ivan focus episode. Teaming Tyler and Chase doesn't happen often and works well. And I liked how those two were still able to fight and be rangers even when under a spell. Cons, the plot is mind-blowingly contrived, made no effort to check the value of gold in relation to the plot points, and had an incredibly goofy, just so happens happy ending with a sudden character change for Mr. Smith. A little better than last week, but still not a pleasing episode. Riches and Rags gets 2.5 super fossils out of 5. So yeah, not really a great episode for us to head into the hiatus with. This was one of those episodes where I might have been able to get into the story if there weren't 11,000 little tiny misses and details just ripping me out of it every single second. Shouldn't Ivan have known what the training dummy he ordered looked like, or what training dummies look like in general? Why would a training dummy be wearing an ornate jacket? What purpose could that possibly serve in helping you train? We had a "we're going to lose the museum" plot that never actually scared me because the show has no idea how money and debt actually work. I mean, I guess I can't say it's a terrible thing that the writers don't know how debt works. I guess they're living pretty good lives, pretty successful then. It just seems like no research was actually done into the value of gold, which made the gold coins in this episode feel pointless because they had a really wildly varying value. The Rangers decide that it's a perfectly good idea to pay back a legitimate debt with monster gold that they had just learned makes people greedy. I will acknowledge that Shelby said, "we've got to destroy the monster anyway," but that came across more as, "so let's just take his gold then." And while I'm glad the writers don't seem to know about debt, they also don't seem to know about interest. Let's just assume for a second that there was a bank in Xandar 800 years ago, and it's still functioning today, and it's keeping active the account of a knight that disappeared instead of donating that gold bar to, I don't know, a museum. The compounding interest on a gold bar over 800 years would be a lot more than $2 million. I did the research. I did the math. I did it for you. I did it because
Hey, whoa, easy there, kid, easy. Take a breath already.
You're right. You're right. A gold bar, using today's gold values, is worth about $500,000 today. If you were to deposit that into a savings account today, in about 800 years, it would be worth over $64 million. Now, I understand that they weren't using today's gold values. This was 800 years in the past. But then you start to get into how they even established a value of the gold bar to establish interest when they were using gold as money at the time. Overall, this was just far too complicated an answer for this episode, and they really should have gone with something else. Overall, this episode had more plot holes in it than Swiss cheese, and it just didn't hold up. Alright, let me go ahead and get to the good, since apparently I couldn't actually wait to get to the bad of this episode. One of the few good things about this split season format that we have is it tends to give us another Extra Ranger Focus episode. Ivan doesn't get a lot of time in the spotlight, so it was good to have another episode that was focused on him, even though he doesn't seem to have grown or changed much at all in that time. And in this Ivan episode, we get a subplot, I guess, about Chase and Tyler, two Rangers who we don't see together very often. The two actors play off of each other very well, and again, the thing that I really like the most is that the both of them had their greed amplified, but were still able to be Power Rangers and act accordingly. But in the end, this was the third not really great episode in a row, and I have to admit that I'm starting to get a little bit worried about the trend of this show. I mean, maybe it's a little bit of an overreaction. I actually went back and checked my episode scores, and through the first 5 episodes, SuperCharge was just about on par with Dino Charge. It's just the last 3 episodes that have really fallen off the table. I actually have a theory about this. I talked about it a little bit in the comments of some of my other videos. I'm starting to wonder if the production team maybe burned through too much of the budget with all of the original footage in the first season of Dino Charge and the beginning of Dino SuperCharge, leading them to have to do some cheaper, basic Sentai adaptations that kind of tie their hands creatively. Speaking of theories, fans are now going to have a lot of time to think of some. As I said at the start of this review, this was the mid-season finale of Dino SuperCharge, and the show is now officially on hiatus. Last year's hiatus was 20 weeks, meaning we're looking at about 5 months or so before we get SuperCharge back sometime in August, probably. But just in case some of you are new to the channel, just because the show is going on hiatus doesn't mean that I am. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, it is now officially time for me to reveal the OrangeRangerVideos Dino SuperCharge hiatus videos topic list. Here we go. In week 1, I thought I'd start by giving you guys a look at some of the other fandoms I like, things I'm into, etc. Week 2, we return to the top 10 list with a look at the assistants. Week 3 brings a new hiatus feature called a 3-run. The third week of each hiatus month, I'll be posting a link to a rerun episode of Power Rangers Reviews or hiatus off-season videos, giving me a slight break every now and then. In week 4, I'm going to open the gates to another question and answer session. In week 5, we'll arm up and take a look at the top 10 weapons. In week 6, I'm going to look back through my comments and correct some goofs and respond to some good comments that I've gotten. Week 7 is another 3-run. In week 8, let's bring them together, top 10 combined weapons. In week 9, since you guys expressed some interest in the fanfic type teams that I've come up with, I figured I would share some of my story ideas with you. As the weeks hit double digits, I'll finally get that top 10 basic Megazords video done. Moving on from there, I've always said that I am far from perfect on these things, and we'll take a funny look back at that with the best of the bloopers. Week 12 is another 3-run, but in week 13 we'll take a look at my top 10 Red Rangers. I felt like this one deserved its very own slate. Remember how I said in the State of the Channel video that there was a huge milestone coming up in the summer that I could plan for? Well, this is what I meant. As the nation celebrates another birthday, I'll be celebrating something of my own. The 100th episode of Power Rangers episode reviews. And you know that an explosive special is going to be coming for that. In week 15, those Red Rangers are going to power up with the top 10 Battleizers. Week 16 is another 3-run, but in week 17, we'll shift the focus to the newest hero on each team, taking a look at the top 10 Auxiliary Rangers. In week 18, taking another dangling topic that was pushed back, we'll see how the Power Rangers 2017 movie is coming along. In week 19, what do those Auxiliary Rangers drive? Top 10 Auxiliary Zords. And in week 20, we will of course wrap up the hiatus with the last 3-run, which won't be a 3-run, but in fact will be a 3-cap of SuperCharge so far. Now, of course, this schedule is the opposite of written in stone. This schedule is written on an Etch-a-Sketch. It can and likely will change for various reasons. But in fact, I want to give you guys an opportunity to change it. In the comments below, let me know one topic that you would rather I do a video on, and let me know which of the videos in that schedule you would substitute it for. Not the 100th episode special, of course, and I'm sorry, but I'm keeping the 3-runs because, like I said, I want to take a break now and then. Today's featured comment comes from Matt Bennett, who points out that Home Run Coda was a bit fillery, but says he's not really a sports person. I think the fact that I am a big sports fan reflects that the episode was not written well. I really should have been on board for this episode, and I wasn't. Oh, right, speaking of comments, during the hiatus, we transition, even though this is the first time we're doing it really, from featured comments every week to channel shoutouts after every top 10 video. So remember to keep that in mind. During the hiatus, no featured comments every week, channel shoutouts every other week. Alright, I've reviewed the episode, I gave the hiatus schedule, I talked about comments and channel shoutouts. I think that about wraps things up. Well, that's going to do it for this episode review. Make sure to tune in next week for the first Dino SuperCharge hiatus video and get the answer to the question, what else do I like? Make sure to like the video by clicking the like button right down below. Subscribe to the channel if you're new so you don't miss any of the SuperCharge hiatus videos. And we're not going to have a featured comment next week, but what the heck, why don't you guys leave a comment down below? Let me know what you thought of this episode and of my review of it. If you really liked my review, you can leave me a little cash tip by going to my channel page and clicking the blue support button on the right. Someone recently left me my first cash tip. It was about $5. I don't know who you are, but seriously, thank you. Once more unto the hiatus breach, good friends, and may the power protect you. And then secondly, Burgundy Ranger, the always well-informed TV... No, the script. Perfect. Anyway, Kendall walks into the lab on the phone, looking for a package that the company says has already been delivered. Oh, and he puts down 3 half-dollar sized solid gold coins. Tyler and Chase touch this Number 2, a museum that has multiple complete dinosaur fossils. Parts, the fossils part, because the gassy bones. Ivan, who'd been sent by Kendall to look for the 2, is intercepted by Fury, who'd himself been sent to get their energems, but decides to fight round 1. Shuriken. Tyler goes supercharge and Fury retreats. Wow. He asks the teller for a bar of gold, explaining that he's a Knight of Xandar, and the king paid the knights with gold bars. While there were, I have to actually say number 1. Each of those coins looks to be about, say, $half sized, and $half are about half an ounce each. So, yeah, because I'm like, blah, blah, blah. But he gets all noble, declaring that he won't pay his debt with monster gold. But he suddenly remembers a way that he can get some money, and he leaves. Some people are just hardcore capitalists. All they understand is money. The almighty dollar rules all. They don't understand They don't understand things because they're not bees. Bees. My God. I will acknowledge that Shelby said, we've got to destroy the monster anyway, but that just came off more like, so let's steal his gold. No, I'm doing this too. And in this Ivan episode, we get a subplot. This is exactly what I was talking about. The 13th, the 11th. If you really liked my review, you can leave me a little cash tip by going to my channel page and clicking that blue support button on the right. And the rest of it is gone. Somebody left me a $5 tip. Make sure to like the final take and I get to my first 3.